For those of you who are joining us, welcome to the Oracle In podcast. We're getting into our second segment of today's episode where we're going to be talking about the role of professional sports in society. And Q, do you want to start off with that one? And because we've kind of been throwing this around a little bit. And Kevin, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too.
So I thought it would be a great subject to bring up, of how we romanticize celebrities, entertainers, and athletes, just all together. And so for this particular subject with athletes, just think about it. When you think about how much they get paid, and you think about, kids, this farm system, that they call AAU, that they put these kids in, nobody gets paid. Only people that get paid are the people who run it, the coaches and everything else. These little kids are exploited, and all they do is play. And a lot of them, you're not really even taught fundamental, team basketball because it's only the best players, and you're trying to all get your own shine, right? And you're all trying to get to the next level, and so with that, just to kind of, finish setting it up too as well, is that I feel like sports are used as a distraction, for society to take away from the real issues. Super Bowl's coming up, but what did we just talk about, these current events that's happening right now? But everybody's gearing up for the Super Bowl parties in Texas and stuff like that. Nobody's paying attention to what's really happening because we're worried about what LeBron James is doing, or, what Tom Brady's going to do, or what Bill Belichick said, or what this person said. And so for me, it's great. I love sports. I'm a big fan, but I do know too as well that it is used as a distraction, So, I mean, we can go in a lot of different directions with this, but that's the gist of what it's all about.
So what I thought was interesting is I did just some quick research on this, and I came across some things that, when we talk about like what professional sports and athletes do and how they're looked at as role models and everything like that, I think, one of the things that is important is that these are, especially in professional sports, you're making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you do have sort of a public stage to do things, and there are a lot of charities out there. There was a statistic that I came across. It was written on an ESPN article, and they said that 74% of 115 athlete charities investigated fell short of acceptable nonprofit standards used by some of the top charity watchdogs. So basically, a lot of these, it's a write-off. A lot of times you can just employ people around you, create a nonprofit organization, and do stuff in the community. And it's just interesting to see that large of a number that of all the work that it looks like is like, if we're going to say that they have a role in society and you try to look at the positive that they do, that positive, that perception is to say that 74% of that isn't up to, regular standards of actually being effective in the community. I think that's significant.
Do you have a statistic for the average just across all nonprofits?
No, this was just regarding sports.
That's the piece that would be the most interesting to see, is that the norm? Or are they just like everyone else? Are they falling further short, or are they doing better? You look at a lot of the big nonprofits, like, the Red Cross, for example, right? Huge nonprofit. They do stuff all over the world. And they are, if you want to understand where nonprofits can fail, read up about the Red Cross in Haiti, the Haiti stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they just wasted all that money. It's just gone. And they didn't even do much of anything. So, and that's, an American institution as a nonprofit. So I'm just a little leery of looking too deep at one segment of nonprofits when it seems like it might be a more widespread problem than it seems.
Let me pose this question to both of y'all then. Do you feel it is the responsibility of athletes to speak on social issues? And so let me, I guess, provide context of why I'm asking is because, a lot of these athletes, and I'll just speak, to the Black athlete, some of them come from, economically disproportionate backgrounds, right? And so before anybody knows your name, the people in the neighborhoods and, around the block in the city, they are the ones that are supporting you into, a white person or whoever sees you who has a resource to take you to the next level, or a black person who can meet a white person to take you to the next level. That's just kind of how it is, most times, so I don't want, this is kind of how I see it, but then, you start getting those white dollars though, because if you think about it, at those games, who's sitting front row? There's not a lot of, people from the hood sitting in the front rows unless you're a rapper entertainer, right?
Yeah.
Or you're one of the select few that, kind of made it out there, so then you kind of start forgetting about where you came from, because if you say the wrong thing, you can start losing those endorsements. You're not attractive anymore marketing wise. You look at Colin Kaepernick. Luckily for him, he made a lot of money before he started taking that political stand he did, because had Colin Kaepernick just came into the league, he'd probably be out the league right now.
Oh yeah.
But he already, he already has some equity within himself because of, previous play, and so he's able to sustain himself now, because he already has a name. If nobody knew who Colin Kaepernick was, like taking that knee probably would have been 2 weeks within the media run and he'd have been done. That'd have been it, so main question, do y'all feel, no matter what, white, black, whomever, do you feel like they have a responsibility to speak up on social issues?
Well, I think anyone with any sort of celebrity status has that responsibility. I understand that it comes with challenges. Like you were saying, endorsement deals, you can get your ass kicked right back to the curb and be out of a job, out of money, out of everything. So but I think, we're living in weird times right now where there's so much at stake and so much, like, it's almost like we're back in the 60s in this moment, like to not do something, to not use your voice is almost, yeah. I like to think that people should step up a little bit, even if they're not taking, they don't have to be like Kaepernick, right? They don't have to be drawing a huge amount of attention, but just to say, hey guys, let's try to do the right thing.
But let me kind of pose this back though, and this is where, like, now that I really do try to listen to as many different points of view as I can. I'm not saying I'll agree with them all, but I really do try to listen. And I can hear a voice saying that, if you do well in high school and you go to college and you do well there, you perform well, and you keep striving, you keep getting better at your craft, and then you get into the professional sports world, why are you obligated? It's like you personally achieved, you personally succeeded at your craft. What obligation is there outside of you taking care of your family?
Because you didn't get there by yourself. That's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you're a professional athlete, you have to have a team behind you, right? Like your city, like sure. People have to come to your high school games, word of mouth. Hey, did you see Kevin? Did you see Laquan play last night? You gotta go watch this guy play. So the whole city, everybody is helping you out. You know what I'm saying? And that easily could have been you. Like if a person got killed by a cop or whatever unjustly or whatever, that could have been you. And you might not be there, if you didn't have all those lucky breaks, because if you are athletically, if you win the genetic lottery, you're protected because you are a commodity to them. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much you're a stock that they have to like take care of, until like it just pays off, because
so long as you're useful.
Exactly. Right. And so,
yeah.
And so the word, and I'll say, yeah, I don't know what you say, like obligated. So let me take that back. But I do feel like they do. Well, I did say they have a responsibility, but I just feel like you don't get there by yourself. There's so many people, that help you out along the way, and people who just didn't make it, who maybe it was better or just as good as you, but for some odd reason, something happened to them that they didn't make it to where you are. You get lucky, So it's like, I do feel like you have to kind of speak on that, because the fans are very diverse, like people look up to you like, man, like you made it. I want to make it like you too. So you should be able to speak on that, because it's not okay. And your moral compass should kind of lead you to be like, you know what? This is not right. Let me speak on it. Nobody said you got to go out there and like, be like super aggressive, but like talk about it. Like Ali did, Jim Brown did. I know times are totally different since then, but you should still be able to talk about it though.
Well, but like I look at somebody like Tom Brady. I don't really hear him speaking out on those things. And this guy is totally protected, but at the same time, it's like if he did that, would that strain his relationship with the owner, with Robert, the Kraft family? Would that strain his relationship with the head coach?
No.
Well, he's literally friends with Trump. So why don't you hear him talk about it? Because he's literally friends with Trump.
Yeah. Well, but that's what I'm getting at, though, is that when you look at the culture and you look at the dynamic of it, when you're saying, are you obligated? On the one hand, I understand what you're saying, because I think you make a really good point that, if you get into professional sports, the people who buy your merchandise, the people who pay those tickets, these are like middle-class people. They're the diehard fans. They're the fans that are, pay $2,000 to come out and see the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that, elite people don't do that too, but like, I feel like it's that middle class that they're the diehard fans. They'll be there like every game, and they're there because it's so much a part of their lives. Like they have to root for something, because otherwise they got to go to work and they're not exactly fans of their work. So this is like their escapism. And I think you were talking about that earlier too, when you were talking about the roles of athletes. And does that, because I feel like that's kind of a double-edged sword, that on the one hand, yes, it can be a distraction to, why don't you take that time that you're watching sports to look up some real issues that are going on, your rivers being polluted, climate change and these sort of things. But at the same time, it's like, but at what point do you have to take a break from that and do something that's not so heavy?
Well, I'm not saying you have to be totally ingratiated with politics, but these are dire times. Even through the Obama, presidency too. Like there's still issues that came up that you should pay attention to.
We were bombing the shit out of everybody during Obama.
Exactly. But just real quick, you brought up Tom Brady. So, and I'll say this: you don't see white people at high rates getting killed and being plastered all over the internet or TV. So he doesn't have an obligation, because he can't speak on that. But how I look at it is, dude, half your team, pretty much over 80% of your team is black. You know what I'm saying? If you're seeing things that are affecting them, you should, because those are your people, right? Like your teammate. So like those are your brothers, right? And if we all play sports, we all know how that is. It's a very close bond. So if something affects you, then it should affect me too. But I know Tom Brady is a Trump guy. Do what you do. I don't, whatever. Because when they won the Super Bowl during the Obama presidential, when he was president, he didn't go to the White House. Yeah, he didn't stay home. He stayed home. He didn't go to the White House. People forget that.
Oh.
Yeah, people forget that. He didn't go because he wasn't a fan of Obama. So
wow.
So I think one point that you brought up is, sports is a distraction, right? Which I think is what, beyond anything and everything else, that's what gives the kind of that responsibility to those athletes or actors or whoever it is that's part of this distraction enterprise. It's because they're being used to, hide the real issues, and because they're being used to stop middle-class people from thinking about how their community should be or how their state or country should be. They have a responsibility to try to interject some reality when they can, because right now they're being used as a smokescreen to cover everything else.
Where's that money coming from?
They're the only ones making money on it.
Where's the money coming from?
Yeah, it was interesting too, because one of those articles that I was reading was talking about how once you go from college where you're not getting paid, and I'm interested to see over the coming years how that's going to be resolved, because you're basically exploiting slave labor at that point, but that'll be for another discussion. But when you get up into the professional realm, that it is entertainment, that falls under entertainment. Like, yes, athletically, you're doing some amazing things, but that goes right up into watching your favorite TV show or watching a movie. So it's interesting how you guys are framing this, because I think it makes a lot of sense that if you can at least acknowledge that people watching a big Super Bowl and spending 3 hours means that there are other issues that are really important, way more important than who wins a game. Like the bigger game is afoot here, and we need to start paying attention to this. That, this is always tricky because you can't force this, but how do you motivate athletes to get that sense of empathy that, hey, people are suffering severely all around, and those numbers are increasing. So how do you reflect to at least take that stage and try to bring attention to some things?
But they're brainwashed, a lot of them, because there was a couple of stories on ESPN, and so I use brainwash loosely, but when they go into the league, they tell them, when they have the symposiums for the rookie symposiums and stuff like that, the guys that you grew up with, you need to let them go. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to be hanging out with those guys. They're going to be bad for you. They're bad for your brand. At this point now, you need to worry about your brand. You are a brand now, and you cannot have any negativity. You can't have any ex-drug dealer or somebody who had maybe a felony on their record. You can't afford to have that brought up. because I'm trying as your agent to make you money. And if you have some baggage or somebody on your team that's going to mess it up, you know what I'm saying, then you're not going to make any money, because these sports checks are only so big unless you're Kobe or MJ or, you know, Westbrook or whatever, you know. So they're told in these symposiums. And you know, I remember Herm Edwards and all these other guys where he's talking about on ESPN one time, like they tell you these things, you know. And then my last point too is, where are these dollars coming from? I know you said middle class, but even lower than that, like these little kids who don't have much, their moms are working 2 and 3 jobs to get them a pair of Jordans, a pair of Kyrie Irving shoes, right? And that gives them hope, because you know what? At one point they were that, you know, kid with a single mom, and she had 4 or 5 kids, you know, in the house. And you're like, you know what? If he did it, maybe I can do it. I can't afford to go to the game, but I can wear his shoes, and that gets me close to that person because I have his shoes on. I have his jersey on. I'm watching it, you know. So they don't get those salaries unless people are buying their merchandise, unless people are buying into them. That's simple as that. You know, like think about LeBron James. He came out of high school with a $100 million Nike contract before he even signed his NBA contract. He already had a $100 million contract out of high school, 18 years old, $100 million high school, $100 million contract with Nike. You know why?
Well, that enterprise. Go ahead.
You know why? Because people in Akron, right, and that's not an economically affluent area.
It's a small town.
A very small town, right? But they were packing those gyms, watching him play. That helps. People, word of mouth, like I was saying earlier, people were talking about it. It got out. Oh, well, we got to go watch this guy LeBron James play. So now you got athletes coming in watching him play. You got cameras coming in watching people play. You have networks broadcasting a high school game like it's an NBA game. So yes, he does it, you know, but that's how you get big as an athlete. You know, it's a grassroots movement all the way through. You know, you just don't get there by yourself.
What's the Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So, you know, what was interesting about Los Angeles is that when you talk about that enterprise, that sports enterprise, I just remember growing up that if you were into sports, one high school that you wanted to go to was Long Beach Poly, because when it came especially to football and basketball, I mean, they invest in their athletics. So it is just kind of weird dynamic where, yeah, that starts very young, where you get those kids hooked on their favorite team. They identify with the symbol. They identify with the logo. They want to be a Laker. They want to be a Dallas Cowboy. You know, they identify with that. And then you get them going through the school system where they're not focusing so much on academics. They're focused more on how can I become a better, you know, football player or basketball player or baseball player or whatever. And then making their way through that to get to college, because you know, it is interesting that when you look at colleges and universities, that's also a double-edged sword, because if you look at the money makers for colleges and universities, especially the big ones, if you have a really good sports program, that's putting up a new science building. You know, there's a lot of capital that generates. So it's like it can be a bad thing, but you got to look at the other side of it too, which is it's generating revenue that will build academic structures. So it's very, very complex, I feel, when we start to break this down.
It is, you know, and they try to backdoor you and be like, you know what, because they don't put the names on the back of college jerseys, right? But it's like, well, who else wears number 12? Who else is the star person wearing number 12 for Michigan or, you know, or Ohio State? You know what I'm saying? So if I'm not great wearing number 12, then number 12 in that accessory or apparel store doesn't fly off the shelves. People are wearing number 12 because I'm wearing number 12 and I'm the star on that team. You know, my name might not be on the back of the jersey, but they know who number 12 is. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, and yet I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They own your likeness, your rights, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that can make money off you.
Well, I just remember the whole Reggie Bush thing at USC. You know, that was when USC had multiple NFL talents and they were just making hand over fist, and those athletes don't see a dime of it. But yet if Reggie Bush takes a side deal to buy his parents a house, now all of a sudden he's in threat of losing his Heisman Trophy and all this other stuff. It was just
he lost it. He wasn't threat. He lost it.
Well, he eventually actually voluntarily gave it back because it was creating too much bad publicity, but it's just stupid.
Gotcha.